Hello again, and welcome to another sound design tutorial. Before I quickly jump into this tutorial, I just want to show you guys a quick page I've set up for any of you who use the FMOD and Unity videos. If you ever come across one of the videos and you find a script in there that you really want to try out and use for yourself, you can go to this page now that I've called the Scott Scripts. And you can just literally copy and paste any of the scripts that I've used in my videos. Say, for example, you watch the audio occlusion tutorial. You could come down here to where it says scripts and click on the script I used. So in this case, it was just occlusion tutorial. And you can literally just copy and paste it straight into your project. So hopefully this will save you guys a lot of time and make it easier for you learning how to use some of the stuff that I have done. If you want to get to this page, you could just go into the description of my videos. I'm going to always make sure I put a link to it in any of my videos. But you can also just follow the address that I've got up here, www.scottgamesounds.com/the Scott Scripts. Follow that and it'll take you straight here. If any of you guys try that out, please let me know if that works for you and if that makes it a bit more helpful, because I know a lot of you guys have been, finding it a bit of a pain to copy and paste the scripts, but hopefully this makes it a lot easier for you. Cool. Sorry about that, quick little plug, but hopefully now that's out of the way. We can jump straight into the sound design tutorial. So, today we're going to be doing creating a monster raw sound, but we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I've set myself a bit of a challenge with this. Instead of just making a monster raw out of anything I can get my hands on, I've deliberately just limited myself to balloons. And the reason why is because I think balloons are great, absolutely fantastic for sound design. They're amazing because there's just so many weird sounds you can create with them. There's like a massive range. You can fill them up with air, you can squish them, you can release the air, you can get high pitched sounds, you can get low rumbles, you can fill them with water, slap them around, you can pop them like I've done in my handgun tutorials for the sound effects of them. If any of you guys have seen those videos, you'll know. So yeah, there's just loads of different sounds you can create with balloons. So I wanted to kind of demonstrate how good they are. And I did this by trying to create a monster raw. As you can see here, I've set myself up a little project in Logic. I've actually got a scene from the original God of War. As you can see, this is the Hydra that you fight in like the very first level. This is the very first boss. And whilst this isn't meant to be a sort of I'm recreating the sound of the Hydra, because my sound sounds totally different, I'm just using this as a template. Because the Hydra has a lot of movement going on, and I wanted my sound design to reflect, its specific movement. So, for example, its jaw moving, how it vibrates, and hopefully that will help show the amount of possibilities you can do with balloons when it comes to making monster rolls. Obviously, you can do much more with balloons. You can record them wherever you want, but I thought this would be a good way of showing you the weird sounds you can get from them, if that makes sense. So let's quickly show you what I came up with the Hydra. There we go. So I'm pretty impressed with this, to be honest. It came out really well. So yeah, let's jump into this and show you guys how I came up with it. The first thing we're going to do is actually jump into another project. That was my sort of final finished version, whereas this is the version that has all the raw recordings of the balloons. So now we can go through them one by one, and I can actually show you how they, came to be and how they affected the end result. So the first thing I did with the balloon, or the first few sounds I recorded, was me taking a balloon full of air and just rubbing it with my hands. And this created at first it created a really rubbery, stretchy sound. But the sound also came out quite low. So I thought, oh, this would be perfect for like a low sort of powerful voice, yelling, which is kind of why I got the Monster Raw idea in the first place. It sounds heavy, it sounds big. So for a giant Hydra like this, it works perfectly. So I just literally kept rubbing it till I got loads of different weird sounds and, different lengths of it, for different purposes. So let's play a few examples. This is the first one I got. This is the second one I've got. And altogether, this is all the sounds I used for rubbing my hand against the balloon. Now, I'd got quite a lot of versions of this sound of me just rubbing my hands with a balloon, but I was specifically looking out for any sounds that had a lot of character in them. And by character, I guess I mean just weird sort of sounds that I recognised and thought, that sounds kind of distinctive. Like I can imagine that coming from a voice of something, or from the throat of something. So more specifically, I mean this sort of tail end, which you can see I've sort of faded in with the rest of the sound. If we have a listen quickly. that sound, it kind of sounds like there's an animal making that sound, you know? So anything like that, I try to throw in, you know, not just with the rubbing of the balloon, with any sounds. I thought, if that sounds like something I can imagine an animal making, I'm going to try and add that in. Okay? So the next few sounds I got was really high-pitched sounds, and I got this from filling a balloon with air, and instead of tying a knot in it, I left it open, and I just slowly released the air by stretching the end of the balloon out so that the sound would be really, really high-pitched. And this was great, you know, this is great for a really high-pitched yell, you know. A lot of monsters that you see in movies and stuff, they have a bit of a shriek to them, which is what I was trying to recreate. More specifically, I didn't just let the air out really quickly by, you know, stretching it. I wanted to make the balloon vibrate. So again, it sounds like something that's coming from a throat, you know. There's, you know, body parts at work, which is what I was trying to recreate. So let me play you the sounds I've got. Let me quickly loop it again. So this is the first one. This is the second one. And this is the third one. So that last one specifically, you can really hear the balloon vibrating, which is what I was trying to get. Also with the second one, if I play you the bit right at the end, that sort of rise and then dip in pitch, I thought sounded great. Again, as character, I can add that to the monster roar, and it can make it sound believable, you know? So I definitely wanted that. So altogether, we have this from the high-pitched balloon shrieking type pulling thing. This is what we get. Which I think sounds really cool together. Let's also play that with the low rubbing of the balloon. So at this point, it still obviously sounds like we've just mashed a load of balloon sounds together, but it kind of does sound like there's something there. It kind of, if we watch it with the video, in fact, let me just enlarge the video. It does kind of sound believable, you know, to a certain extent. Like I said, obviously, it's still obviously just balloons, but we're kind of getting the shape of what we're after. So the next sound is air. Now, what I did for this is, again, I filled the balloon up with air. I didn't tie the knot in because I wanted to release the air, but instead of pulling it tight so the sound came out really high pitched, I literally just released it. So in a few seconds, all the air was gone, and this I thought would make a lot more sense for the breath of the monster, you know? You know, because obviously if a monster roars, it's going to be pushing a lot of air towards you. So I thought this would be a nice little thing to slide underneath all the other sounds just to make it feel a bit more believable. So let's have a listen to what I got. This is, or not all of them. This is the first sound. Oh, sorry, that's the other one. This is the first sound of me quickly releasing all the air. There we go. Again, obviously it sounds like a balloon, but hopefully when we mix this all together, it sounds a bit more believable. As you can see here, I had to kind of fade two together just because obviously when I'm releasing the air quite quickly to get this sound, it's not lasting very long. So, you know, I've edited a few together just to make them kind of fit. This is the second one, which I kind of looped a bit just because with this, I probably could have recorded a bit more. If I had to change anything, I probably would do a few more recordings of all these sounds. But this one, it kind of was what I wanted and kind of wasn't what I wanted. I just wanted it to stretch a bit too much without losing any of the pitch. So that's why I've looped it a bit. And I'm going to, not that I recommend doing this, but I'm going to mask this with some processing so you won't be able to notice that it's been looped. Okay, and then the last sounds I got was from actually filling the balloon with water. So essentially I've got a water balloon, tied that in a knot, and I just sort of shaked it, slapped it around, did whatever. And the idea was that this was liquid inside the throat. Now, obviously, a Hydra it's meant to be a sea-based monster, so it makes sense for you to hear a lot of water. But I purposely haven't sort of gone overboard with this sound. I didn't want to make it too, you know, water-based because I feel like that'd be pretty cheap. In the sense that this is supposed to be for any kind of monster, you know. This is something you want to record with not just balloons. You want to record with loads of other stuff and add, you know, to thicken up the sound. So instead of trying to make this sound like water that the Hydra's just throwing and slashing and, you know, sending it up into the air, I wanted this to sound like the water from inside its throat. So, for example, its tongue slapping around, any saliva that's pouring out its mouth. In fact, if we have a quick watch, you you can see there's quite a lot of water. Again, it's not meant to be specific to the Hydra, but there is a lot of water, you know, being moved about, you know, in this video, which is what would happen for most monsters, you know. There's going to be a lot of liquid. So let's have a listen to the water individually. So this is the first one, which is me just shaking the water balloon around. This is the second. So this time it's more of a slapping sound, which I just slapped it against my hand really quickly to, again, try and make it seem like the tongue's vibrating. And the last one is more or less the same. So it's the same thing, just to layer it up a bit, okay? Cool, so that's all the raw balloon sounds. So if I play them all together, we get this. Which, like I said, isn't bad. It definitely sounds like a balloon, but it's not bad for, you know, a start. Cool, so now we've looked at all the raw audio, let's jump into the final build and look at some of the processing, okay? If it wants to... Oh, that's the wrong one, that's why. There we go. Okay, so let's get the video up again. Let's just have a quick watch of it again, just so we can remember what it sounds like. Cool, so now let's have a look at some of the processing. So first, let's have a look at those... well, actually, first, let me explain what I've done. So I kind of organised them a bit now. I've separated them in terms of the sounds I was going for. So like I said earlier, I went for 4 things. I went for the low roar, the high shrieks, the breath and the air that the monster's pushing out, and also wet sort of slaps that come from the inside of his mouth, okay? So let's have a listen to those individually. So we've got the low roar. We have the high shrieks. We have the breath. And we have the wet slaps. Cool, very nice. So let's have a look at the low roars. So, as you can see, we had 2, let's close that. We had 2 sounds to start with, but now we have 3. And the reason why is because I started out by taking that first sound and stretching it a bit, just to make it sound not only deeper, but, you know, maybe fit the sound a bit better. But when it came to flex pitch in Logic, there was 2 different versions that I couldn't decide from. It was speed and tempophone. Yeah, I couldn't read that then. Tempophone. So yeah, they both sounded really cool, really interesting, and I honestly could not decide which one I wanted. If I quickly take all the processing off and play you them individually, you can have a listen to what they sound like. So this is the speed stretched. And then this is the tempophone stretched. And so together they sound like this. So yeah, I decided to go with them both because it thickens the sound. I get both of the characteristics that I want. It kind of worked out nicely, okay? So let's have a look at some of the processing. Now, like I've done in previous videos, I usually just literally go through all my plugins, but in this, I'm not really going to do that too much. I'm just going to summarize the main plugins that gave this sound the character. So for example, with this, as you can see, I've got a few plugins here, but Chorus is the one I want to talk about. Now, whilst Chorus made it sound really, it was only a real subtle change. I think it helped a lot. Basically, what Chorus does is it adds a short delay, which mixes in with the original dry track. So in my case, this kind of helped add that vibration I'm after. You know, I want this to sound like the monster. There's something moving in the back of this monster's throat that's creating all this power, you know, and this low force that's screaming at you. So Chorus worked really well because it kind of made the sound feel like it was moving a little bit more. So let's have a listen with and without. And let's have a listen with. Okay, really kind of not too much of a mad change, but I feel it really helps. So let's have a listen with all the processing on. So as you can see, I've just added some quick EQ there, compressed it a bit to control the level. I've also just monoed it. The reason why I recorded this all in stereo is literally just because I wasn't sure whether I wanted it to sound really wide or really focused into the center of the mix. So I'd recorded everything in stereo with an XY configuration on my little Zoom H5. Sadly for this, I wasn't able to get hold of any mono microphones. I wanted this to be really high quality, but I didn't want to do it on my phone. Whilst you can get away with that, I wanted to really show what you could do with balloons and focus on that. So, long story short, that's kind of why everything's been recorded in stereo, but not all of it is, if that makes sense. Okay, not the best way to do things, but hey, that's not the focus. Again, if I had to change something, it would be that, you know, give myself a bit more prep time, get some, you know, some range of microphones to record this with. Cool. So that was the first sound. Let's have a listen to the second sound with and without processing. Again, chorus is the main focus here. So let's have a listen without. Let's have a listen with the chorus alone. And then let's add it all together. Cool. So now for the second sound we recorded, let's have a listen to that without any processing. For this one, again, it's chorus, but I've also pitch shifted it a little. If we click on the pitch shift, I've just upped it a little bit. I guess the reason why is because I wanted to separate it. Whilst I wanted it to feel powerful and low, I just wanted to separate it a little bit from the other sounds I recorded in this category. So that's why I've done that. So let's have a listen with just those two plugins on. This one I really like. The character that I was on about earlier really comes out, and it really sounds like there's some, giant, hideous thing moving its mouth about. And let's now have a listen with everything on. Cool, so one final time, let's have a listen to the raw category. I've just stuck a compressor on all of it just to, balance it all out a bit. Let's have a listen. Cool. Now let's move on to the high shrieking sounds. Okay, so before I quickly do anything, I'm just going to quickly... actually, I'll tell you what, let's play the whole category on its own quickly. So that's with a pitch plugin added to all of them. Let me turn the pitch off again and have a listen. Now, what you might notice is that I've dropped the pitch as opposed to raising it. And the reason why was because I felt that the high pitch sounds or the high shrieking sounds kind of didn't blend well with the low rumbles, if that makes sense. They sounded separate. They sounded like two different things were making these sounds. So I dropped the pitch to kind of fit the high shrieking sounds with the low roaring sounds in terms of frequency, so it didn't sound so separate, so there wasn't a gap in the middle, where sort of 1K, 2 kilohertz should be. Let me quickly play those two both together with and without the pitch. So this is without the pitch added, and then with. So for me, it was a personal preference thing. I just felt like they fitted a bit together. They blended well. Cool. So let's have a look at the first sound we recorded. So on this, oh, that should be gone. So on this, we've got a few things. We've got some more pitch. The thing I did with the high shrieks is mess around with the pitch a lot. I just sent them everywhere. I wanted to separate. I wanted them all to sound different in terms of pitch. I wanted to separate them, but I also wanted to blend them together. So that's why you might see a lot of pitch being changed with them. So, for example, here, I've dropped the pitch quite heavily. I've made sure the effect blend is in the middle, so we get half of the original sound and half of the sound with the pitch dropped. What else do we have? Some reverb. Reverb helped really, really well on the high shrieks. We'll have a listen to that as well. And some distortion, to really give it a bit more power, a bit more crunch, I guess. Twist the sound a bit more. So let's have a listen to this first track. First, let's have a listen just on its own. Oh, hold on, is the pitch? Yeah, there we go. I'll take that off. So let's have a listen on its own. So there we go. We can hear, it's just a balloon. Let's now add the pitch. So now it kind of sounds like there's more than one vocal cord working inside the monster. Let's now add the distortion. Just kind of crunches it a bit and twists it some more. Let's now add the reverb, which on the Space Designer, what did I go for? I went with this kind of reverb. Let's see, how did I get that again? I can't remember, because these kind of reverbs on the Space Designer sounded really cool. I think they were surround outdoor. Yeah, I think all these HD surround sounds kind of really worked. They sounded massive and huge, and they were really great for this kind of sound design. So I've used a lot of these, you'll probably notice throughout this video. So let's add that to it. Sounds like a really long drone. I think I had to drop the reverb. There we go. There's the word. I dropped that quite a bit because it sounded too long at one point and too loud. So it gave me the kind of right tone and feel I was looking for, but was a bit too much. So I pulled it back a bit. And then finally with the pitch. Oh, did I go for 2 pitch shifts? I did. I've dropped all of it together. I guess I've mixed a few. So now we're going to get, multiple pitches mixed together. Let's have a listen to that. Okay, so now we've got like almost a foghorn kind of sound, but it sounds really, really weird and disturbing. If you heard that in the distance, I would kind of freak you out a bit. So all together with the extra EQ and compressor, I'll just quickly check what the EQ does. I was just getting rid of some lows. We get a really cool sound. Cool, so let's have a look at sound number 2. Let's take all the processing off. That pitch is off, cool. Let's see, I think there might be an EQ on there, 1 second. Let's just check, yeah, there is, quickly take that off, cool. Let's have a listen to that on its own. So I think what I did for this is I actually just shortened it a little bit, just to make it fit in with the rest of the sound layered up. Hence why there's a crossfade in the middle here. But again, the bit at the end I was talking about last time where the pitch drops and increases, that sort of character, made sure I kept that because I felt that was quite important. So let's start with adding the pitch shift. Again, I think, yeah, so I've just given it a kind of half and half of the original, half of a dropped tone. Generally, I'm going to be dropping a lot of these high-pitched sounds. Whilst I did want them to sound high, I just found that generally making them a little bit lower made them blend well with the low roars, which I mentioned earlier. So let's have a listen. So now it sounds really whiny and really disturbing. Let's have a listen with the reverb. Again, I've used that sort of stereo presets that we just saw. Sounds really nice. Now, tremolo. This one I was quite proud. Oh, no. I'm going to do some more stuff with tremolo in a bit. So, in this case, while the track's still stereo, I'll just add some tremolo to make it move around a bit. Again, trying to make it feel like the monster's jaw or the monster's vocal cords are vibrating. So, let's have a listen. So, you can see I've set them to a really fast speed because I want them to, be rapidly moving. Some more pitch alteration. Let's have a listen to that. Sounds really cool. And last but not least, I've had some tape delay. And again, this is all about, making things feel vibrating and moving and creating loads of different sounds, basically. Loads of different weird shrieks coming from the monster. And then let's add the compressor. Let's add the compressor and the EQ back on. Again, it's just a low cut filter. Let's have a listen. Cool. So finally, our last high shrieking sound. Let's have a listen. Now this one I'm really quite proud of, and I'll explain why in a bit. So as you can see, I've stretched it out. That's the first thing I did. Actually, let's quickly get rid of all the processing. So I stretched it out, done it with the speed setting, so the pitch dropped a bit, which sounded quite cool. Let's have a listen to the original. And let's have a listen to it stretched. Cool. Let's now add some pitch. So again, dropped it. Got a kind of balance of both the original sound and the pitch alteration. Let's have a listen. Very nice. Now this tremolo is what I was proud of. So what I did is I actually moved this one to a mono track because I wanted to make sure for this specific effect this was mono. What I did is used a mono tremolo. So as opposed to what a normal stereo tremolo is it will move the sound between the two channels. So you'll either hear it in the left or the right, But with mono, it literally just duck the amplitude, essentially. That's essentially what it's doing. It will drop the amplitude and raise it back to its normal setting just constantly. I've gone for a really quick sound because, again, we're going for that vibration kind of feel. And this worked really well. You could do this manually with automation. You could just drop the volume and raise it again. But, this kind of got the effect I was after. So let's have a listen to it with... I really love this sound. It really sounded just otherworldly, which obviously this is what we're trying to go for. Something really weird and just disturbing because monsters are supposed to be a bit, weird and disturbing. So this I was really proud of. Feel free to try this out. It's a great little tool for coming up with weird sounds. What else do we do? Some more reverb. Again, Space Designer. Let's have a listen. So again, it's one of those surround sort of presets that we've got down here in Space Designer. Let's have a listen to that. Very nice. And again, some more pitch. Again, like I said earlier, there's just loads of pitch alteration just to make it sound like there's multiple different sounds going on. Let's have a listen to that. Oh, this one I've actually increased instead of decreased. Let's have a listen. So that's really nice. It just adds a little bit of something on top. So all together, we get this. And then, like I said earlier, I've added a bit of compression and some more pitch alteration. Just to drop the whole thing. So altogether, the lows and the highs, we get this. Really starting to sound like, you know, we've got something huge just screaming at us. Or probably drop that. We don't want to see that turning red. Certainly not. Right. Next, we've got the breath and the air. Now, the breath and the air, if I'm honest, I kind of struggled with a little bit just to make it fit. So I've kind of dropped them a little bit low compared in terms of amplitude to the rest of the sounds. These kind of sit in the background. But without them, I do feel like there's something missing. So that's why I've kept them in here. Let's start with this first sound we've got. As you can see, again, I've just done some chopping up and some fades to sort of mix them in together. Let's take all the processing off and listen to it on its own. Cool. Now let's add some of the tremolo. As you can see, I've gone again for that sort of mono tremolo effect, but this time instead of dropping it all the way down, I've gone about halfway, just so it doesn't completely disappear, you know? And then last, we've got a bit of reverb here, which this time I've gone for a different preset, but it kind of fitted a bit better. So this sounded quite cool because it sounded like it was coming, the reverb made it sound like the air was coming from the back of the jaw of the monster, you know? So, and the sound was bouncing off, you know, the cheeks and the bone of the monster. So that kind of sounded really cool. And then all together we get this. Nice, okay. Then the last breath sound, let's have a listen without the processing. Let's add our tremolo, and again, yeah, I've done the same sort of thing. And I think for the space line, I did a similar thing. Yeah, okay, so a lot of this was very similar. Let's have a listen. Cool. And then all together, oh, let's add that back on again. Just, I imagine this is just, yeah, okay, this is quite a big low cut filter. But all together we get this. Very nice. And then with the other three, we get this. Cool. Nearly there. Oh, don't want to do that. Nearly there. Let's finally have a listen to our wet slaps. So the first one, I guess I decided not to go space designer, so let's take that off. First sound, we get this. Not that, this. So this one I decided to leave quite dry. I guess just I was looking for a lot of reverbs and there was nothing really that I felt worked, so I just left it quite dry. Again, these wet slaps, they're kind of similar to the breaths. They sit in the background, but without them, you'd notice they were gone, you know? They're just little sort of additional details. So let's have a listen, or let's have a listen without first to the compression and the EQ. And then with. Cool, very nice. Let's have a listen to the slaps now. So for this, I keep leaving my plugins I'm not using on. For this, just a more pitch variation, just to make the tongue feel heavy this time. Because obviously where I was recording with a small little balloon, the slaps were quite high pitched and they sounded kind of light, whereas this is a massive, probably like 10-foot tongue that we're talking about. So I dropped them to make them feel heavier. Cool, let's listen without. Cool, very nice. So again, it just makes it feel a little bit more heavier. And then the last slap sounds, again, just some pitch alteration. Again, Henry, stop leaving. Can't be leaving empty plugins on. It's just wasting CPU. Right. So again, a little bit of pitch alteration. Oh, I don't think I showed you what the pitch settings were for this. Okay. Oh, I did. Okay. So yeah, some more pitch just to drop it and make it feel a bit more heavier. This time, instead of put the effect blend in the middle, I've gone all the way because I want this to, like I said, sound heavy. I don't want any high sounds in this. So let's have a listen without. And let's have a listen with. Very nice. So, all together, for the wet slaps, we get this. And then with all the other sounds, we get this. Very nice. So let's have one final look at it with the animation to see how it all fits together. Cool. And there we have it. So that's really all there is to it. Like I said, I absolutely love recording balloons because, as I've just demonstrated, you could just get some really weird, freaky sounds with it. And if you process them in similar, ways that I've done, you can make them sound even weirder. So, we could go further than just monster sounds. We can go alien sounds. We can go, weird sci-fi horror sounds with balloons. And if we wanted to do monster rules, like I said earlier, we don't just have to use balloons. We could layer this with all sorts. We could layer this with metal rubbing to create weird shrieks. What else could we do? We could like get loads of pillows. That could be the tongue again. Just slap them around. We could get like just large metal containers, hit them to create long drones almost. There's loads of stuff that you can do. These are just things off the top of my head. But again, this sort of demonstrates how many uses balloons get. I'm probably sounding delusional or mental at this point, but I love recording balloons because there's just so much utility to them. Cool. So I think that's all there is to it. Thanks ever so much for watching. Like I said at the beginning, if there's any of you watch the Unity and FMOD tutorials, hopefully that page I've shown you will help you find your scripts. If you have any questions about this sound design project that I've gone for, feel free to drop them down in the comments and I'll try and answer them the best I can. And also let me know if there's anything else you want to see in terms of sound design, any more sounds or any different uses you might want to get out of balloons. Yeah, so that's everything, I'm pretty sure. Yep, I'm pretty sure. Cool, so I've been Henry Scott, and thank you very much for watching.